Show a more slower example on how to fingerspell the alphabet. So this would be A, B. For C, you just make a C with your hand. D, index finger goes up. D, E, this is E, 3 fingers. F, your index finger touches your thumb. G, so from this side, your fingers would be like this. G, H, again same thing right here. I, then for J, you make a J with your pinky, so J, K, L, M, N, O, P, so this is what it looks like, P, Q, so this way it moves down, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, this is what your index finger should look like, X, Y, you make a Z with your finger, so this would be Z. So some numbers from 1 to 20 in sign language. So this would be 1, you don't want it to be facing forward, it has to be like this. 2, not like this way. 3, you don't want it facing this way, and you don't want the fingers together. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and this is 11, 12, again fingers separate, not together, 12, 13, 14, with the thumb behind your fingers, 14, for 15 the thumb comes out, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, this will be 20. How to say, to ask, well not to say, how to ask someone what their name is, it would be like your name, what? So it would be, it's an informal kind of way of asking, but you can't really ask like what's your name is. The way to reply to that would be my name, and then you would have to fingerspell your name, and like in my case, my name is Julia, so it would be J-U-L. Sign, how are you? So, boom, this part would be how are you. So how are you, kind of, you have your thumbs up, your hands are together, and it kind of goes like this. So it's like, this is how are you? And then usually when if you're like really interested, so you would move in with the how are you, so it would be how are you, like that. An informal way, or like I guess the more younger generation way you would say would be like what's up. So with what's up, you'd have your middle fingers down, and it would be like this. You could do it with 2 hands, or you could do it with 1 hand, but this is a more informal kind of way. So if like a really close friend or someone that you know, or how to ask someone or signs to someone, how are you? So how will you reply if someone signs that back to you if they're asking how you are doing? So I have 3 possibilities. You could say good, fine, or okay. So a way to say good is just flat hand. This is good, like that. Okay would be an open hand, thumb here on your chest, fine. And then to say okay, you just fingerspell it, so it's okay. Ask someone how old they are, it's only 2 signs. So again, it's a different language, so it's only 2 signs when really we're saying 4 words. So we're just saying old, you. That's pretty much how you would ask someone how old they are, and you know their name, and you know like maybe how old they are, or just basic stuff about them. you can go a little further into your conversation, ask where they live. So how you would say that is, you live where? And that's how you would ask, like, where do you live? Or where you would ask the person I say would be, you live. So you're going up, live where? So it's one finger and you're moving it where. You know a person, you know how they are, you know their name, you know like how old they are, and you know maybe where they live. So you want to know where they work. So to ask someone that's deaf where they work, it's only 3 signs. So it's you work where. Again, so it's you with your fist, work where. After you met someone and you just introduced yourself and you know what their name is or like how they're doing, you can say nice to meet you. So a way to say nice to meet you is with your flat hands. This is nice. Fingers up with your fist like this. Nice to meet you. So nice to meet you. Common thing that we usually say is thank you, and that's a really big thing if you want to be polite to people. So a way to say thank you is, of course, it's facial expression. Again, you have to be, if you want to be, if it's a positive thank you instead of a sarcastic one, like oh thanks, you want to smile. So a way to say thank you would be like this. So it's flat hands against your chin, thank you, and you smile. So it's like thank you. You don't want to be, you can, but you don't have to, where it's like thank you. You don't have to point to them because you're already addressing them. So it's just thank you. Manner signs that everyone should probably know are, so excuse me would be, you have your flat hand and you're kind of just like wiping at your hand, so you're kind of going like this, so that's excuse me. And then please would be, you're putting your hand is flat and it's on chest and you're rubbing it around, so this is please. Thank you, we've already been through this. Thank you is just your hand, it's just on your chin. Thank you. And so another thing that could mean 2 things. So this could be thank you, or an easier way to reply to thank you would be you're welcome. So it'd be thank you, you're welcome. So it's an easier way to say you're welcome. And the last one, sorry, would be you put your hand in the fist and it's over your heart and you go like this. So this is someone sorry. And you're talking to them and you have to leave or you have to go away. You don't want to just walk away without saying goodbye. So a way to say goodbye is like this. So this is just goodbye. You can also say see you later. So seeing you later, it's like this. So it's see you, then you take your thumb and it goes like later. Or you could just, instead of saying see you later, you could just do see later. See later. And again, it's like you're rotating your hand back. So see you later. I want to talk to you about deaf culture and more about deaf culture and the history behind being deaf, or the history of sign language. So with the definition that I found on Google, deaf culture is pretty much summarized or described as just using sign language as a way to communicate about social beliefs, like behaviors, art, literature, and just history, values, anything they want to talk about. So that's pretty much what deaf culture is considered to be. So people or members of the deaf community, they tend to view deafness like as a difference in like the human experience rather than a disability that usually hearing people will consider it. They'll consider it a disability, while deaf people, they will consider it just as a different experience in being a human. So they see it in a more kind of positive way than usually hearing people do. So actually, with people not long ago, the deaf, they were harshly opposed and they were denied fundamental rights. So Aeropostale was the first person to he was the first person claimed to record about deafness. He had his theory where it said that only people can only learn things if they can hear it or speak a language. So that's when deaf people were therefore seen as being unable to learn, and they were being unable to learn or to be educated at all. So they were denied fundamental rights. In some places, they weren't permitted to buy property, or they weren't even permitted to get married, and they needed their own legal guardians, or just someone to watch over them, because they were considered uneducated and they were unable to learn. So they were considered, sometimes they were labeled as non-persons. So there was an Italian mathematic and a physician that I'm gonna mispronounce the name, but it was Giuliano Cardino. I'm gonna put a thing on how to say his name. He was the first scholar to identify that learning does not require hearing, so it kind of broke, or yeah, it pretty much said that Aristotle's theory was incorrect. ASL, so sign language, American Sign Language, it didn't truly start until 1840s. So sometimes with the sign language they have now, so like in English, we have Old English and then we have English now, modern English. So it's kind of the same thing with English. So back then there was no standardized language like no standardized like sign language that existed in the time, but there were many different things. So there were various signing systems that were created in deaf communities so people would be able to communicate, but they were later changed, and those signs that were various signs that were used, they're known as Old American Sign Language, and the sign language that's used now was based upon was that the old American Sign Language was used to create the sign language that is used today. So just some differences between deaf people and hearing people that I found online, and with people, or things that I've read online with like blogs and then seeing how people said. So it's kind of discussed. So with a deaf person, you can discuss money with them, while versus like with a with like talking about money with a hearing person, it's a private subject. With a deaf person, you can discuss bodily functions, while speaking to a hearing person about bodily functions, it's considered a taboo subject. In the deaf community or with a deaf people, information is shared, while with hearing people, it's considered gossip and it's considered to be rude. With deaf people, personal questions are okay and they're perfectly fine, while with hearing people, it's considered as rude or nosy. Two other things is, or one last thing is like personal remark to deaf people. Personal remarks, they show a caring attitude, that you kind of care about the person that you're telling them what you think. So it's not considered anything bad, or it's considered as like they care about you, so they want to kind of make you better. While in the hearing community, if it's pretty much the saying that says, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. So I think with that, it raises the question of why are hearing people so, I guess they seem more isolated and less connected to people, while deaf people, they're more open-minded and more open to talking to other people. I think that's kind of interesting. I think, like with what I think it's because I think they're more open-minded than hearing people, because they don't have to learn with a disability, or like we consider a disability, or with their different experience. Like they have a different experience that we won't be able, that we're not experiencing. Like we experience hearing, they experience something completely different. So I think it's kind of interesting, the different cultures and the different things that experience. Just it's kind of interesting. It's interesting to see the difference in how deaf people kind of are, I guess, more optimistic, and kind of stuff like that.